See, but here's the issue. El Salvador currently has a president, Bukele, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, who is a self-described world's coolest dictator. And he and Trump have developed this relationship recently, wherein the United States has agreed to pay millions, $6+ million a year for El Salvador to house some of our deportees in their prison. And given this developed relationship, I have a fear that he's not going to give Abrego Garcia back. Who cares what the Supreme Court says? It's not his Supreme Court. I don't think he's just going to hand him over. I think he's going to argue that, no, he's his, and he stays in that prison. Given the fact that they've established this connection, this relationship, whatever it may be, and given the fact that we are paying the country of El Salvador to house these people there, I worry that it's not going to be as simple as going in and getting him. Because nothing's stopping El Salvador from saying, no, you can't have him. He's our prisoner. And then what? Not to mention the fact that he is an El Salvador citizen. Like, that is his nation of origin. So who's to say they won't just claim they're going to keep him because he's committed crimes there or done something there that they want to hold him for?
Technically, this was a 9-0 decision to bring Garcia home. But there's a lot of gray here from the majority. The court told the president that the executive branch must facilitate his return, but that the courts can't force the president to effectuate it or directly carry it out. Kilmar's attorneys in the dissent are absolutely right in saying that he needs to come home now. But this court, like everyone else, is scared of Trump. And I think that they think if they are perceived as crossing over into executive branch territory, that that's going to give Trump an excuse to do the same for them. My message to the Supreme Court would be, he doesn't care. He'll find a way to do it eventually. You need to crack down now. But like Republicans, they seem to think they can outlive this guy. Everyone at this horrific prison should be brought home now and retried.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to react to the mainstream liberal media, the Democrats, the liberal reaction to the Supreme Court ruling that came out last night, basically requiring the Trump administration to help facilitate and effectuate the return of the illegal immigrant gang member that was sent to El Salvador, right? He's in a maximum security El Salvador prison. He was in the country illegally, okay? He could be deported, just not to El Salvador, right? And the Supreme Court is saying, hey, you got to try to bring him back. But, you know, he can be deported again, okay? And that is why you have some Democrats, some liberals realizing that, you know, this really is not a victory, right? Like, honestly, what the Supreme Court did, it doesn't matter that they said that the administration must help. Effectively, it doesn't really change the situation. That they're basically in a lose-lose situation when it comes to the prospect of this dude coming back to the United States of America, which, again, is fascinating that you have the liberal media and the Democrats and liberals demanding that we bring gang members, alleged gang members, back into the United States of America.
They plucked this man off the street. They deported him in violation of a court's order. They acknowledged they did it in error. They refused to lift a finger to bring him back. They taunted the judge, essentially, saying, it's your court order, let's see you enforce it. It was a mocking tone by the administration. They never offered to try to remedy their mistake. Now they're being told by the Supreme Court that they're going to have to remedy this. Will they pick up the phone, as we know the president could do, and call the president of El Salvador, with whom he is very close, and say, hey, we made a mistake, send this guy back? They're going to obviously be most concerned with what they're always concerned with, which is saving face. So that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence, but if they ignore this instruction by the Supreme Court and the fault by the district court, then we are really in that uncharted territory we feared, where they're simply flouting even a court order.
Out there, and it can't underline this enough, when you're going against 9 Supreme Court justices, you can't dismiss Clarence Thomas as a left-wing Marxist lib judge when he's agreeing with the district court judge, who is an icon to so many conservative jurists in Washington, D.C., who they've dismissed as a Marxist. So now you've got Clarence Thomas, the ultimate conservative icon for a lot of legal scholars, saying, yeah, that district court judge that is at the center of the conservative legal movement in Washington, D.C., yeah, they're not Marxist judges. They're agreeing with the entire Supreme Court. You guys did it the wrong way the first 3 months. Bring him back and let's get this right.
Yeah, so Joe Scarborough is going to get his bubble burst by MSNBC's legal analyst, who is going to tell Joe Scarborough that the illegal immigrant gang member that you are demanding come back to the United States, he's probably not coming back. Okay, the Trump administration is basically viewing this as a W.
See, and again, this wasn't 5-4. I must say, I expected this to be a 5-4 decision. I was that cynical. But once again, unsigned, which means 9-0. So talk about the impact of this decision last night in particular, but the two taken together this week and what it means.
Yeah, let's start with the decision last night. The order is a win for the Trump administration, and at least that's how they're going to play it. Here's what I mean. A real win for Garcia would have been an order that says, hey, administration, I hear the Salvadorian president's going to be here Monday. Put Garcia on the plane, seated next to him in a reclining seat, and he better be here Monday with the president. That would have been a clear win. The reason I say this, the administration is going to call this a win, is there's a lot of space, a lot of loophole potential in this order. Consider this. One of the lines that we put up there on the screen was that the court ordered him to be returned, or excuse me, to facilitate his return so his case could be handled as if it was properly handled. Remember, the 2019 order for Garcia by an immigration judge just really prevented his return to El Salvador. In theory, any of the other 193 countries out there might be perfectly all right. And if his case was handled the way it should have been, that could still result in his removal. And then there's even bigger wiggle room for the administration in the language with one word, effectuate. Yes, the lower court's order remains in place. The administration has to effectuate his return, but the court has to clarify, what does it mean by effectuate? I guarantee you, and here I am saying it now, the administration is going to say that whatever the district court clarifies effectuate means, the administration is going to say, well, guess what? We say you don't have the power to order us to do that because you're essentially ordering us to engage in international relations, which you, an Article 3 court, another branch of the government, cannot order us to do. And we're going to be right back here where we were this last week as this goes back up through the courts. I will just say, Joe, you're exactly right. Taken together, the two Supreme Court cases over the last week or so do stand for the idea that people subject to removal are entitled to due process. But sometimes even due process can be relatively hollow because as long as they give them that notice and as long as they give them that hearing, arguably these folks can still be removed. So yes, a win for due process, but I promise you, hear me now, the administration will call this a win for themselves, or at least that's how they'll play their hand.
Yeah, I mean, last night I said it was a small L, but the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm about to turn it into a small W, right? It might actually be a small W because let's be real, combining that with what the Supreme Court ruled about the administration using the Alien Enemies Act, right? The whole due process thing, again, it's just a speed bump at this point, right? It's a speed bump. It's like, okay, like the only due process we need is to figure out if they're here illegally, right? And for the courts to confirm they're here illegally. That's it, right? Once we confirm they're here illegally, they can be deported, okay? And we can fast track that using the Alien Enemies Act. That can be fast tracked. So essentially, it's overall a W. Okay, yeah, we can send illegal immigrant gang members to El Salvador. Okay, the order from the court has done nothing to prevent that. Okay, we can't do that. The only reason that they want this guy to come back to the United States is because he just couldn't be deported to El Salvador, right? So with that being said, the worst case scenario here for the administration when it comes to being forced to bring this dude back is that they bring him back, he goes through due process, okay, the whole process, and then they just deport him again, right? That's it. That's literally like the worst thing, the absolute worst case here. Absolute worst case. And I think that's what liberals are realizing. Democrats are realizing, oh, snap, we actually cannot force the president to bring this dude back, right? It doesn't matter. They're going to lose no matter what. They're going to take an L no matter what the courts say at this point, right? This dude is a lost cause. But what people got to understand, and I know some people may think what the president is doing is harsh, but he's taking a page out of Nayib Bukele's playbook when it comes to solving the crime crisis that was happening in El Salvador, right? The violence that was happening. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You have to send a strong message that there will be no mercy for anybody who is in this country illegally, especially if you're part of a gang, right? If we even think you're a part of a gang, this could be your fate, right? This is what can happen to you. Well, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen as a result? Less people are going to come to this country, and the ones that are participating in gang activities, they're going to think long and hard about either stopping those gang activities or just flat out leaving the country, right? So this is about sending a message. Again, some people may be uncomfortable with it, but it is necessary. We've had tens of millions of illegals poured into our country over the past 3 to 4 years under the Democrats and the Biden administration. There was no due process for those people coming in. They just came right on in. Biden bent every rule that he could find to let them into the country. So now we got to do what we got to do in order to reverse that, which means that we're going to have to do things that people are going to find to be controversial. But it's about sending a message. It is about changing people's behavior, okay? And this is why I don't mind the president coming out here and you know, I don't know if he's joking about this or what, but when he comes out here and says, yeah, we could send some U.S. criminals, right? Like American criminals to that prison too, right? The most violent people to that prison, even though that's not going to happen, right? I don't think that's going to happen. But the fact that he's saying that, it sends a message to, again, violent criminals that, oh, wait, this administration is not playing when it comes to law enforcement. They're not playing. That this could happen to me, right? And that is how you change behavior. Again, I wouldn't be surprised that over the next 3 or 4 years, you're really going to see crime start to decline, right, across the country. Because I think this administration, again, is sending a message, a clear message that law enforcement is back, right? Law enforcement is back in this country, at least at the federal level. And who knows? Again, I'm hoping, praying that you're going to see some behavioral changes just from the messages that the Trump administration is sending. So with that being said, Democrats, liberals, the media, they're going to be upset once they find out that this victory wasn't actually a victory. This actually probably was a W for Trump. At the very least, it was a small W for Trump. I'm changing my mind. I'm officially making this a small W, considering how the Supreme Court basically gave Trump wiggle room to not actually really have to bring the guy back. But at the same time, I don't think they could have actually really told him how to bring the dude back. I don't think they could have went further than they did. Okay. And that's just the reality of the situation. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.